There have been a number of issues raised, particularly in a recent evaluation report which has just been released, which says, among other things, that there are still significant problems with the aircraft and with the production.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. This program still has risks, technical risks. It has cost issues. It has problems that we have to, in the future, fix. There's no doubt there. The report you're referring to is the DOT report that just came out 2 days ago. What I can say about that report is it's factual, it's fair. I think the tone of the report is such that anyone reading it would get a sense that the program is in a lot more trouble than it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the program is all rosy, because it's not. We do have issues. However, we're meeting every one of those. And everything in that report that came out 2 days ago, none of it is a surprise to the department or to the JPO or to Lockheed Martin, and we're addressing those issues.
Now, you call the plane the F-35 Lightning II. The report says the plane can't fly within 25 miles of a lightning storm because of the possibility it might ignite the oxygen in the fuel tanks.
True statement. But let's put the context on that scenario.
Well, it doesn't sound very safe, does it?
That's why we don't allow our pilots today down at Eglin and at Yuma and at Pax River and at Edwards to fly when there is lightning within 25 nautical miles, because the airplane systems today are still vulnerable to that. But let me give you the context of the problem. Normally, and when I say normally, in an acquisition program where you're developing an airplane and then later on you produce that airplane and there's not much overlap, the protections that you put in to protect the airplane against lightning would occur at the end of the development program long before you've produced so many airplanes. But we have this concurrency issue on the program where I have 51 airplanes out in the field today, and not all the lightning protection has been fully designed, because some of it, quite frankly, was not designed well and we have to redesign it, and other parts of it just have not caught up with the design process yet. So I have airplanes in the field that we know should not be flying around lightning. Will this problem occur in the future? No, because we have the known fixes for it, and we will fix it. But today, you're absolutely right. The airplane cannot fly in lightning. In the future, will it be able to? Absolutely.
The report also says that the removal of 2 safety valves in an attempt to reduce the weight has left the JSF vulnerable to fuel explosion if hit by enemy fire. And that sounds as though the plane is vulnerable because you've removed a couple of safety valves.
Once again, the words you use are correct and accurate, but within the context of the program, let me try and explain that a little bit. The airplane is originally built with certain design features that will make it less vulnerable to enemy attack. This airplane, like every other airplane that's come before it, has many, many different design features that will make it less vulnerable and more survivable. Back in the mid-2000s, when weight was a problem on the airplane, the enterprise had to decide how to remove weight from the airplane. One of the ways to do that was to take material off the airplane. One of the choices that was made at that point in time was to remove a few of these valves and a few of these fuses that in the end game would have made the airplane slightly more survivable to save weight. The problem with the statement that the airplane is now vulnerable is how much vulnerable, and vulnerable to what? What I will tell you, what I know about that decision back then and what I know today, is that removing those valves and those fuses creates a very, 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 very small increase in its vulnerability, almost unnoticeable.
The tests also discovered a handful of cracks in the tested aircraft, including in the right wing and the right engine of the F-35A, which is the aircraft Australia is buying. How important were those cracks? How significant were they?
So part of the development process involves testing, which we call durability testing. And that's where you actually take an airplane and you put stresses on it as if it were flying over the life of the airplane. So in this first set of durability tests, we took the F-35A and we put stresses on it as if it were flying for 8,000 hours. At each 1,000 hours, we stop that test and we inspect the airplane to see if we found something wrong with the structure of the airplane, cracks, weaknesses, and those kind of things. You do those tests early in a program so you can find problems like the ones we found. So to say that the cracks that we found in the A model are a problem is a true statement. We would have preferred to go through that testing and not find any problems. However, that's why you do that testing early on, so you can find those weaknesses and those cracks, and then you can fit them. So now it's my job and Lockheed Martin's job to design a fix, which we are doing, and get that fix back into the production line and make sure that the 51 airplanes or those A models that I have out in the field also get retrofitted with that fix. So yes, it has been a problem. Yes, we discovered that during testing. We would prefer not to find any problems like that, but we find them and we fix them so that 10, 15 years from now we have an airplane that's going to last us 8,000 hours, because that's what we want.
The aircraft also is late on arrival. How late is it?
Well, very interesting, a seemingly simple question, Andrew, that's not that simple. If you look back from when the program actually started in the early 2000s, I will tell you that the delays in development and the delays in production, probably when you add them all cumulatively together, probably about 4 to 5 years late. Okay, we had our problem with the weight on the airplane, and then we had a problem where we were overrunning cost and schedule, and that caused us to have to re-baseline the program. That combination of events has probably put the program back 4 to 5 years. And time is money, so that's increased the cost on the program.
Are you concerned that the delays are leading some countries to reconsider this aircraft?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that that some of the problems we've encountered on the program could, in one way or another, give nations pause to what they've committed to. The United States is exactly the same way. We slowed the ramp rate of our production of our airplanes, 179 airplanes, over the last 2 years for exactly all the reasons we just talked about. So it's not unusual for me in the current fiscal environment that our partner nations are looking at their commitment to the airplane, quite frankly, because we made a promise that we would deliver them airplanes at a certain point in time, and because it's taking longer now, they have to adjust to that. The best thing that I can do as the program director is to provide those countries with, one, the most accurate and timely information so that they can make their best judgments for their nations. Two, run the best darn program I can, meaning delivering on my promises of when capability and airplanes are going to be delivered. And then three, drive the costs down on this program, because quite fundamentally, producing the airplane and sustaining the airplane right now, as I look at it, simply costs too much. If I can do those three things, then I think our partners will feel pretty secure in their commitments.
How much of a problem is cost when you're selling this plane?
Two aspects to the cost piece that I want to talk about. First is the cost to produce the airplane, okay, the production costs. The good news there is that each and every lot of airplanes has cost less than the previous lot, and I expect and will demand that the future lots will continue on that trend to cost less and less. So from a production perspective, although we're not where I wanted to start reducing the price is coming down nicely, and we will press Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney to keep doing that. Those are the production costs. The real big elephant is how much it costs over the life of this airplane to maintain it and sustain it. And that, quite frankly, there are many, many estimates out there, some of them very high, some of them a little less costly. Here's what I will tell you. I think today, looking at what we have, the cost to maintain and sustain this airplane is too high, simply too high. We have to do something to change that. And let me tell you what we're trying to do in the program office and within the enterprise. First of all, the assumption had always been that both Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney would remain the key integrator of sustainment and maintenance and services for the life of the airplane. I'm not so sure that's a good assumption. What I've told Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney is you have yet to earn the right to become the product support integrator for the life of this program. So what I've tried to do is tried to take pieces of the life cycle and I've tried to introduce some competition. For example, support equipment. We know fairly well what the support equipment is needed on this airplane. Nobody has told me there's any reason why there are not other companies and other industrial partners, both domestic and foreign, that could help us build that as support equipment. It doesn't have to be the prime contractors. If we get some of those industry partners on board, we can at least pressurize the system with some competition to see where we can get some additional savings. So I think in the long run, those kind of strategies, working with the partners, working with our industry partners, both domestic and foreign, we can figure out ways to reduce the long-term cost of this airplane because it will be unaffordable if we don't do that.
Tell me about the decision of the Australian government to delay its acquisition of aircraft.
First of all, the internal politics of the Australian government, I will leave that to you and your countrymen to sort out. I have a hard enough time figuring out politics in my own country. But much like what the United States did 2 years ago, much like what Turkey is going through right now, much like what the Canadians are going through right now, the world is changing. There's lots of fiscal pressure on governments. So it's just a normal course of events for these countries to take a look and see where they want to spend their precious dollars. And the F-35 program, for all the wonderful things that it will be, has had some problems in the past, and I would expect countries to reevaluate where they are based on their current fiscal environment, based on the threats, based on the world changing. Not an unusual thing to have happen. We, the United States, did it when we reduced our buy by 179 airplanes. So from my perspective, again, the best thing I can do is run the best program I can, reduce costs for them, and give them the best information for the Australians to make their decision.
Is there a bottomless pit of money for this program?
Oh, absolutely not. So one of the things that I have instilled in the program on the development side is the concept of there is no more money and there is no more time.
If there is no more money and no more time, is it possible that the project could fail?
Fail is a very interesting word. I think given the fact that we have about 4 years of development left, and I have told the entire enterprise I am not going to go back and ask for any more money, and we will get done what we can in those 4 years, there is a chance that if we run into problems, and I don't see any of those problems right now in the future, but if we were to run into those problems, then we may have to shed some capability on this airplane to get done when I say we're going to get done. I do not foresee that happening. I do not see anything in our future that would portend that. But the enterprise has no appetite for me going back and asking for more money on this program. The partners don't want it. The U.S. government doesn't want it. Nobody wants it, and we're not going to. So we are going to live within what we have.
So you still can't rule out the prospect of this project failing?
I would find it very hard to imagine that the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Marine Corps, the U.S. Navy, and some of our partners who intend on having this airplane as the backbone of their tactical air forces for the next 40 years could walk away. I find that hard to fathom.
But defense spending around the world is under pressure, and the United States is no different, so it's not impossible.
Nothing's impossible, but I find that very, very, very unlikely to happen. I know the U.S. government and the three services are fully committed to the completion of this development program and to buying the F-35 as part of their fleets.
Australia's agreed to buy 2 F-35s at the moment. If it goes ahead with the purchase of the next tranche, how much will the cost be, and how many aircraft are involved?
I believe the Australian government is committed to buying 2 airplanes in what we call our low-rate initial production Lot 6. We just completed negotiations on Lot 5, so a little bit hard for me to speculate exactly how much those 2 airplanes will cost Australia, but here's what I can tell you. I know pretty much how much an airplane in LRIP 5 is going to cost me, or at least the price that I've negotiated with Lockheed Martin. And for an A model today, that's on the order of about $105 million. Add an engine to that, and that engine is on the order of about $14 million. What I will tell you is, when I negotiate the deal with Lockheed Martin for LRIP 6 and airplanes beyond, I fully expect the price to go down. Fully expect the price to go down. So you can do that math, and you can see where that lays out for the airplane and the engine.
Australia was originally committed to buy 100 JSFs. Do you think Australia will buy 100 JSFs now?
I really can't speculate on how many airplanes Australia intends on buying. What I will tell you is, officially from my point of view, there is no indication that they're not going to buy 100 airplanes. It is a matter of when they will buy those airplanes, and I leave that to the Australian government to decide. And again, the best thing I can do to help the Australian government is to give them the information to make a good decision and drive that cost down and deliver on our promises.